Okay, so I have a car class. You may wonder what this car function comes from, and this is called a constructor. I'll show you that later, but for now let's talk about these fields, the VIN, make, model, and year. Let's go back here. Now here, as you can see, we make these data fields public. And making public so that you can access these files. You know what, let's see if I can put this in a side by side. I don't know if I can do or not, but maybe like right here. Okay, there it is. And let me collapse these over here. Okay, so this is the main program over here. Okay, so I make this public so you can access them directly using the object dot notation, and then the notation get those data. Now there is a reason why you don't want to use that as public, as you can see in the diagram here, right? We make all these private, and for two main reasons. One, consider this. So let's just say that I'm just going to go with the year here, for example. If I copy that, you know, this many times, just right. If I print that out, of course, you get a lot of copies of that output, the year, 4 times. Okay, so imagine this example. Now, in the program here, let's just say that, you know what, I don't like the word year. I'm going to change it. Maybe I'll change it to something like year underscore made, right? And if I save that file, well, guess what happened over here? Okay, it's no longer recognized the year because it's been changed to year made. So now in your program over here and anywhere else in the program, because you're going to write a lot of different classes, you have to go everywhere and find the word year, change it to the year made. So you can imagine hundreds or thousands of places to do that. Of course, you can do a search and replace, but you know, you never know, right? It's very tedious work. So why would you want to do that if you can make it private? Okay, I'll show you what that means in private. So if you make this year private, I can keep it as it was. And because I make it private, then I must, so if I make this private, it's no longer available over here because it's private. If I save this, you'll see that it's no longer available. Okay, which is fine. We're going to fix this. So in order to get that year, you have to go through a public function to get it. So then I'll make a function down here. I'll make a public function to return the year, right? So I'm returning something. So it's a function return a year, and the year is of type integer. So you put int here, and we'll just say get year. Okay. No parameters. And I'm just return year. Okay. So if I do that, what about here? I want to set the year to that number. I can't either because of just this only return that. So you can create another one. Okay, I can have another function. This one I'm just setting the year, so I'm not returning anything, just like go do it, which is set year. And I'm going to take the integer of year, the same variable name. This year and this year is not the same year. This is local, right? And in here I'm going to assign this year. So we call this year, okay, equals the local year. Okay? And the keyword this always points to the global space. If you don't put that this here, if you do this, then you're basically going in circle here. I'm calling a local variable. As you can see, if I color it, highlight it, you see only sees up to here. It doesn't see out here. And this is also the same variable name. So I'm just saying assigning to itself. If you don't want to do that, then you make this a different name. Maybe like year, you know, a new year or something. And then if you do this way, so if you look for the year, it looks inside this function here. There's no local variable name called year. Then it will move out to the global space and find if there is a year variable, and there it is. Okay. So and then this is a new one. This is just a placeholder. But by convention, you will always use the same variable name as the variable name in the global space. Why? Well, so we know what data we're referring to. If you just call it x, what is that x, right? So we call it year, and then we'll always use this as this dot year. Okay, very common. Here I could do the same thing, this dot year. I don't have to here because I don't have a local variable, but it's always safe to do that. Okay, so we could do that, but in this case you don't have to. So now I have a set year. I can assign the data like this one, replace this, and I can get the year by calling that function. Okay, so here I'm going to call this, I'll replace this. Let me rewrite that with this function, Mustang dot set the year. As you can see, it tells me it's a function. It needs to take a parameter. Okay, so the year will be 1969. To get the year back, I will call the function getYear. And this one has no parameters, right? So I just get the year. And let's just change to a different year. So let's just say, you know, 2017. If I save that, if I run, you will see it just worked just like before, Mustang 2017. Okay, so now the data are private. I cannot change it directly like I do here anymore because it's private, but I can change it going through the function. So now if I do this, if I copy this 3 or 4 or 5 times, right? And if I change the year to, let's just say, years, year made, something like that. Okay, as you can see, if I save this, over here, nothing changes because I'm calling a function instead. But on the original file, I only make 2 changes here. I'll make this to year made and year made. Anywhere else within this function or this class, I use the year made, and usually very few. So as you can see, I can change whatever I want in this file. Nothing affects in this file over here, and everything is still run just as fine. Okay, so that's why you want to use the global, the private for all your data fields. Okay, so another thing, reason number 2 why you want to use that is you have control of your years function. So for example, I enter a year of 2017. What if I put like 2020, 2050? Right? Is that a valid year or not? How do you know that, right? If you don't have this way, if you just do this way, if you make it public, then I can put any number you want. There's no way to check it. But if I put in a function, then I can check. I can say before I set the year, I can check the year. Let's say if year is greater than this year, right? Let's just say 2018. If it's greater than, just go 2019, because sometimes you have card that is made there. If it's greater than 2019, that you say is invalid, or you can say like if it's less than or equal to 2019, then you only allow that year, right? So if I do that, I only take the year is less than 2019. Of course, there are ways to actually find out the current year, but for now, just say 2019. If it's invalid, then it will be just 0 because the default is 0. So if I do this way, you see that I have control of my data. Okay, because it's invalid. Okay, if you don't check it, then I could have a really weird year. So that's the reason number 2, you have control of your data. To make sure the data is valid, it's safe, it's secure before you assign the data, right? And there are other reasons too, but these are the 2 main reasons why you want to set your data to private. Okay, so the next thing I want to cover is going back here again. So these 2 functions over here, I'm going to make the space a little bit wider on this side. Okay, these 2 are, as you can see, have a get year and then you have a set year. These are called mutators and accessors. Okay, or sometimes we also call these as setters and getters. Okay, so this function, the get, this is the access, or you access the data. So accessor, this is also the getter. And this one, I'm setting the data. So this is the mutators, because I'm mutating the data, right? So this will be the setter. Okay, so usually every data field that you have, you don't have to have for every one of them, but usually you will have a getter and a setter so that you can set and get the data from this class. So in this case, I'll have 2 for each of these, right? The setter and getter for all of them, so that you can set this data. Because if you make this private, right, it's no longer accessible over there. Because now again, back to the issue before. But so as you can see, we have mutators and accessors here, setters and getters. But C# is pretty cool because C# has like a lot of ways to help you modify this code, make it much more simpler. Okay, so this is one way. Another way, and I'm gonna maximize a little bit more, is I can rewrite this in a different way. Okay, so instead of doing get year and set year, I will rewrite. Let me change this back to year. Okay, because I don't like the year. The year made is understood. So you can rewrite it this way. And I'm gonna comment these out. Well, we'll leave that for now. So instead of doing 2 of these like that, I could do something like this. Public integer, because the data type is integer. And the year here, I will make this a capital Y for year. Okay. And no paren, right? No paren here. And inside here, I will put the get and the set. So get, okay, and set. And the get function, or part, I will say, what am I getting? Well, I'm returning this year, right? So just say return the year. And the set is basically just this. So set would be this year equals, well, I can't put year here because I didn't pass any data to it. Okay, but by convention and by default in C#, you always have access to a default variable called value. Okay, so value takes the place of this local variable called year. So when you pass data to it, it's going to pass to a variable called value and return and set to the year. So I could take this year out because now there's only 1 year in here. Okay, so by doing that, I can comment these 2 out and just comment right here. Okay, so it makes my code much shorter now, as you can see. The only thing is, when I do this, you have to modify your code a little bit. I can't use the function set year anymore because I don't have them. Right? So instead of that, I'm going to go back to something similar to what I have up here, except it's the uppercase y and not the lowercase y. So I'll use like Mustang dot year equals 1969. Okay, and then down here, instead of get year, I just put the year. So I can use this as a setter if it's on the left side of the equal sign. If it's on the right side of the equal sign or in the expression like this, I'll just call it directly. I could say like int y is equal to Mustang dot year, right? And that will also be 1969. So setter and getter, it works automatically through this method here, this mechanism in C#. So you can see how much code I've shortened this. Okay, if I save this, if you run it, it should still work just like before in 1969. So that's one way, and you can still control because when I put 69, I can still control it. If I write, if I go in here and for the setter, I can check the value, right? Just like I did here. Instead of the year per year, I can say, because this is really it's like a block of code. I can say if the value is less than or equal to 2019. If that's true, then go ahead and set the year. Otherwise, don't set it, right? It's the same thing. So if I put like 2090, and if you run it, so you get 0, right? So you can still control it. If you don't need to do that, then you just go back to what we had before. And then maybe you will control it, you will validate that before you even add it to the code here. So you already validate before you set the data, right? You read the data first, you validate the year. If it's okay, then you assign to the year. Okay, so you don't do the validation internally here, but outside. Okay, so now it's short. And then they say, you know what? You can even go shorter. You can make this even shorter. Because it's so common that you can take this out completely. Okay, I don't need the whole thing in here. I just do get and a set. And it's understood. Okay, so let's just put it back to like 2015. And let's run this file. Oh, I made a mistake somewhere. Namespace out of perspective 42. Did I make a mistake somewhere? I probably close. Oh yeah, I have an extra curlies there. Okay, so save that again. So as you can see, it works just like before, right? Okay, so I'm going from this to what I had earlier. I should have removed that, but to something very simple. So this one can be rewritten in a single line of code, so you can see it's much shorter. And I will do a format here. Okay, so as you can see, it's very short. And then once I do that, then I don't need this anymore. Okay, this is not necessary anymore, because in the year itself, it will create its own variable behind the scene to store to set the year. So this one here is now called a property. Okay, this is a property, and this is only available in Visual Studio in C#. Maybe Visual Basic too, but C# is usually. So I can do the same thing for all of these, right? So I can go public string make that capital, and then get set. Done. Public string vin get set. Done. Okay. and then I don't need these anymore. I can comment them out. So you can see I have create 3 properties, and over here I just have to make this to a capital M, and I'm all done. I don't have a model. Let's get another one. Public string model get set. So very quickly. So I'm changing, like, you can imagine, like, I have this many files times 4 or times 10 to just 10 lines of code, right? Very powerful. And you can see it worked just like before, right? No issue. Okay, so these are properties. So if I say, or if you hear the term properties, this is how you do it in Visual Studio, C#. If you want to control what's coming through the data, if you want to, check the data locally here, then you can't do it this way. You have to do like you did earlier, like the set, and then you put that in there, or you can write a special get setter to do that, to validate. But usually you validate the data first before you send that over to the class, right? Again, this is how you do it.